Hey everybody, GearHead Garage here. Episode number 3, I believe it is, maybe 4, on the Chris Anderson 1961 Corvette Resto mod. As you remember from the previous videos, he had it at his friend's Lenny's place, who was doing paint and body work. Lenny and Chris finished that thing up. Chris piled it back in his trailer, hauled it back out to Charlie Hyatt's innovative rod and custom shop, who's going to be doing the finishing touches on that machine. Charlie started it, got it along pretty well, put the body on the frame, they rolled it into Lenny's. Lenny's did the paint and body, like I said. It's now back out to Charlie's. Charlie, Tom, and Matt are going to put their finishing touches on that machine. So let's go out and take a look and see how they're doing. Chris and Charlie are out working yesterday. I was invited out to see the progress on the vehicle. Shot some video so we can kind of take a look at it, see how they're doing. And stay tuned to the end of the video, because I believe Charlie's going to try and fire that puppy up. So let's get out there and see how they're doing.
Update us on the progress over the last month or so.
So obviously the car got back from paint. Got the rest of the engine stuff assembled on it. Air intake has been installed. The exhaust was finished out the back. All the mechanical stuff as far as electrical connections, making sure the AC hoses are all ready to go. Installed the fuel tank, the fuel lines, the regulator, the filter. Obviously ran all that up to the motor. Did have to modify the fuel tank cover back there because of the height of the EFI pump. Brake system is complete now. Newer style master cylinder, that's the correct size for your brakes. Yeah, tested all the electrical on it.
Power steering's all plumbed and
Power steering's done, put a big remote reservoir on it so you gain some capacity out of there. And then we also put that turn 1 pump on there instead of the standard production one. We got the one that's made to do the performance driving.
Yep.
Yeah, tested all the electrical. Everything works that we can test without having it complete. Gauges are in it. AC's all hooked up, ready to go. Dash pad's in it. All your heater controls, all that stuff's on the inside. Yeah, we got all the stainless assembled on this side of the car.
Yep.
Obviously, we couldn't get in there after the computer and all that stuff was installed, so yeah. So and we're not gonna be able to have the gauges hooked up when we run it.
Okay.
Because I'll have my HP tuners plugged into it.
Yep.
So I can show you all the vitals of the motor
Okay.
on the computer when it fires.
All right, we're back out with Charlie and Chris Anderson's Corvette here. We've made a lot of progress from where we were originally. Charlie's here is going to answer some questions for us as far as what's happened since we've been here. So we can kind of start to talk a little bit about what's going on in the engine bay here. Charlie, it looks like from back, we're kind of going back to the old school kind of stuff here.
Yep.
It looks like it's certainly not a 283, but I think it certainly looks like it is. So what exactly kind of went into getting that thing looking like it is today?
So it started out life as I shouldn't say just, but it's an LS3 crate motor. It's a 430 horse crate motor that we purchased. And then we did put a Brian Tooley Racing cam in it. And then we bought a long block with no intake, none of that stuff on it. And this intake is from a company called LS Classic. So they make it specifically to look like it's a factory Fuelie. So it still has injectors in it. So it runs like a new LS motor, but it has a lot of stuff to mimic the old injection that would come on these cars. And when we were going through the process, the intake was a piece, the valve cover and the valve cover adapters to make these go on here were another piece. They hide the plug wires because the coils are under these valve covers. So the plug wires actually come in through the back. which it helps conceal them quite a bit. And then we used a Holley accessory drive on the front that it's a cast aluminum piece so that you can paint it and make it look like it's as close as you can make it look to like a traditional small block water pump that's painted orange. And with Chris and where he was going with this car, he didn't want everything to be polished and fancy. He kind of wanted it to be, you know, more or less like it would have been when the car was built. So this is all there, just cast, not polished, not powder coated stuff, and tried to make it look as, you know, as period correct as you can with an LS motor.
Right. So is that a cold air intake? Where does that?
So
that
yes,
turn
this
onto?
is from the factory. They had a piece of tubing similar to this that came over to an air box, and then there was a piece of tubing that ran up to here to pull air from. Because we had to change the master cylinder, we didn't have room to put that air box in here. So this is a piece of just 4-inch ductwork, and this is it's from a company called Spectra that has a cone style filter inside of it. This will get painted black, but it was made to kind of mimic a stock setup, and then at the front of it, it does go through and pull on the opposite side of the core support, so it is going to be pulling cold air.
All right, moving on into the interior here, where you can see that Charlie's made some progress here as far as getting the dash in. Charlie, that looks like the original bezel for all of the instruments, but probably not the original instruments.
Correct. So this is the original cluster out of the car. The gauges that are installed in there are from a company called Dakota Digital. So what they do is all their gauges are individual, and they're machined out of billet aluminum, and they take the factory mounting places and install in the back of the housing. And then with the wiring kit, these are all new switches everywhere, so everything in it's brand new. But the gauges, aesthetically, they look like they're from 1961, but they function and are as accurate as a modern car. So everything in there is run through the engine computer. So the same information that the engine is using to run is what's displayed on those gauges.
And that computer is housed where?
Computer is mounted way under here, where you can still get to all the service ports on it, the OBD2 port and all that stuff, but essentially it is serviceable, but it is not something that needs to come in and out often. So it is tucked away, hidden, and protected from the elements, and then the OBD2 part is what you use to program the engine computer and all that stuff.
So like most modern cars then, everything is pretty much running through that box.
Correct. Yep.
Engine management,
Yep.
electrical.
All that stuff.
Everything.
Well, so in this world, there's two systems. You have an engine computer that would run engine and transmission, because the information for both of those is what goes into the tune to make the engine run. And then there's a separate car wiring harness. And there is some integration you have to do to those. It's not a ton, but you need to give the engine computer keyed power, and then powers and grounds, and then there's some information out of the engine computer. For example, you use the engine computer to trigger the cooling fans. So there is a wire you have to hook up to your fan relay to make your fan turn on at the temperature that you want it to. So there's a little bit of back and forth between the engine computer and the chassis, the car harness. You've got, if you pull your headlights on, they dim, and you've got a modern dimmer. It tells you you've got high beams on. Yep. And then you can toggle through. Let me find your switch here. There we go. You can toggle through on this centerpiece, and none of it's set up right now, but you can do trip, you can display digital speed readout, you can do voltage, fuel tank percentage, all sorts of different really cool stuff in there, and none of it's programmed 100% at this point.
Yep.
But when I track my car, I have that reading digital speed just because it's easier to
see a number than.
So that's something you can program, and I think there's like 5 different screens you can do on there. So you can change that however you want it to be.
So just moving along into the back here then, fuel system I'm assuming is all plumbed, ready to ready to fire.
Yep. So it's got a reproduction tank from a company called Tanks, And then they have a drop-in retrofit EFI pump that matches the horsepower of what this car is going to be. And then the fuel lines run out of the car, just similar to factory, a little bit different, but and then there's a regulator and filter mounted down below. Yeah.
So pretty serviceable as far as
Yeah. Yep. Very
through and all
serviceable.
that kind of stuff, so.
We use a Corvette style regulator, so heaven forbid something happens, but if that ever did get plugged or fail, you can pretty much go to any part store and put a Corvette regulator on it. They used them in multiple years of cars, but make it as serviceable as you can.
I noticed that battery is located in the back now.
Yep.
Was that stock? I'm
No.
not that familiar. Okay.
No, that's something that Chris and I discussed. Factory, it was actually in the engine bay, kind of in a pain in the butt spot to service. So this is a battery box from a company called Odyssey Batteries. And we tucked it into the quarter panel, so it's totally out of the way, and you loosen up 2 bolts and 2 nuts and the battery slides out. Otherwise, it's totally out of the way.
Very nice. The other thing I have a question on, we looked at earlier, was the exhaust tips.
Yep.
So again, custom headers coming out, custom exhaust. Of course, originally it would come out of the rear of the car.
Correct.
You guys decided to put it out on the side of the car?
Yep. You want me to grab the bezel? I can sure show you.
Sure.
So, and obviously a lot of this car was done to be the theme of the car, the SCCA car that Chris is trying to mimic. But so in that photos you find of that car, they had an aluminum bezel that went out here. And on the race car, they literally just hacked off the whole corner of this. We wanted to do it a little bit more
Refined?
Yeah, refined is a great word. So we haven't welded the tips on yet, but so it's got kind of a, funky shaped tip, but when that's actually on there, it follows this bezel, very nicely. So, and the reason it's off right now is to drill the holes to mount it, and then obviously I have to mimic it on the other side.
I am with a master wirer here, Tom, and we're going to talk a little bit about what it takes to actually literally rewire this car from absolutely nothing. So, Tom, where do you start on something like this?
On this car, this was a clean slate, and so if you're going to rewire it, whether we're doing an existing harness, we pull everything out, all the wires, everything's gone, and then mount the fuse box, and then you start running your wires out. So you've got wires that go to the tail lights, wires that go to the headlights, get those kind of headed the right direction, then get the dash area laid out, and you're going to run the wire over but leave it long. So if you got your radio wires, we run new power over to like this car has vintage air. So we ran the power over to the vintage air, make sure we have good grounds in there, everything can ground appropriately, and get the dash area wired up and kind of roughed in. This one, having a Dakota Digital, has its own digital box, so that needs power and ground and switchable powers. So we make sure we run a dedicated line for those so that those all work the way they're supposed to. Battery power, key on power, independent grounds.
So do the wires then, so for instance, let's just go back here. If I look back there at the taillights, I can see that there's certain power and ground and everything going to those. Now on that, say that's a red wire, is that labeled?
On the American Auto Wire kit, the wires literally have script on them that tells you this is the running light, this is a turn signal, this is left turn signal, this is right turn signal, backup light, there's third brake lights. So you can add things into the older cars that didn't have a third brake light. So they give you the circuitry, and when you do the fuse box, you're taking out the glass fuses. They're really fragile, and you're putting in today's ATC style fuse where it's just a plug-in type fuse and easy to change. So it updates from the old system, gives you enough power to run newer headlights, gives you power to run electric power windows, power locks. You know, there's circuitry for that so that you can add those features in. Electric cooling fans like on this one. And then, you know, this particular one, having an LS engine in it, has a computer to run the engine. So it has the computer wires going over the ground wire, the power wire, everything set up to run that efficiently. And this harness in particular, 61s didn't have backup lights, but this harness has a provision if you wanted to add backup lights to it, that there's the wires that go down to the transmission for the switch off the transmission, wires going to the back of the car. You can leave those out or you can leave them in depending on what you want to do. So it's
So everything is there now. In this case, do you strip out the ones you don't use, or do you just
you shorten them
leave
up.
them in case
Like the third
in case
brake
you
light.
decide to use it?
The third brake light on this car comes back to about here, and then I just left it in the harness when you put the wire loom over it. It's in there, it's capped so it can't short to anything. And then if you wanted to add to that and run it out to a third brake light, that circuit's in there. But like this car in particular has a provision to run an electric fuel pump. The engine computer has that whole circuitry in it. So when we do that, I take out the fuel pump wire from the harness and use the fuel pump wire for the computer so that we only have one wire going back.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then same thing with the fuel
You're
pump.
marrying those two systems together then.
Yep.
The
You
brains
kinda
from the
integrate the-
engine versus the pure electrical
Yep.
use. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Now, the big question is there a diagram to how you run the wires from the taillights up to the box?
Yeah,
or is there just
the auto wire does come with diagrams that tell you, you know, this one we used the OEM style fuse box in it. There's another series where it's kind of a universal fuse box, but this one, because the Corvette is very unique in the space you have to put things, we have the opportunity to be able to put the fuse box back in the stock location, and then there's a wire diagram that tells you the red wire goes up to the dash, your dash wire is gray and says dash lights on it. So it's all nicely laid out. And on this one too, one of the reasons we chose to use an OEM style harness is it gives you all the pigtails for the taillights, so that you've got all the right connectors for all the things that are under the dash, in the trunk, for the headlights. It's very complete and very nicely thought out, where some of the other kits that we use, like on the street rods, don't need specific vehicle connectors. They just need the power and the grounds and all the functional circuits.
So your wiring harness you purchased was for a
59 through 62, I think.
Corvette?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
With
And that
all
we
of
did
them.
that one specifically because of how the dash pod lays out in these. That just, it's a very small fuse box, and this car, there's a lot of space in the car, but when you get under the dash, you run out of space pretty quick.
Okay. One last question for you. What happens, or say you've connected everything up, what kind of gremlins can pop up? Kind of a loaded question here, but
You know,
I mean, you turn a switch thinking this is going to happen, and it doesn't happen. How do you start to diagnose some of that stuff?
we're pretty lucky that way, just because we've done enough cars that we don't have a lot of the gremlins. But the first few that I did working with Charlie, I got the brake light switch adjusted wrong, and so the brake light switch would hang up. And so what we do is we use a test light to make sure that there's no draw at all before we start permanently hooking up battery cables, so that we can go back and you can pull the fuse out and figure out which circuit it is, and then trace back why the brake light was on and causing problems. So it's it's nice that way. The AutoWire Highway series, they have a 22 circuit fuse box, so you can pull one fuse at a time out till that draw goes away. So at least now you have one circuit that you chase down, and because again the wires are labeled, you can see where you went and I've heard of people that have gotten the indexing for like the headlight wires wrong. And so when they pull on the headlights, then they pop fuses. And so there are some things that way where, take the plug-in connector off and kind of start taking pieces out of it until you get to your troublesome corner.
Okay.
And we don't have a lot of issues that way, mostly because we've done a bunch of these and have years of experience. But
Okay, speaking of years of experience, timetable, what's a kind of a ballpark guesstimate of number of hours it took to actually get where you are now, where the car will actually fire, lights work, everything seems to be in place and is pretty much ready to go?
normally 40 to 50 hours is what you'll have to completely rewire a car. That'll include stripping out the old harnesses and assemblies, and then, all new grounds. So on this one, that has new battery cables, it has new engine to frame grounds. So this is electrically nothing reused in this car.
Okay, so speaking of this car, because it does have a fiberglass body, is there anything as far as like ground wires go, as far as finding different spots to get your ground wire to function properly?
Yeah, that's the fun part about Corvettes, especially this era, is there's a metal structure that goes across the dash from one side to the other, and that's pretty much the whole thing. So nothing when you bolt it to the body gets a ground. So there's an extra ground or two that goes from the engine into that structure to make sure we added enough extra ground to make sure there weren't going to be any gremlins down the road you had to go try to figure out. Yeah, we put extra time in that, and we use very large grounds from the battery to the frame, from the body up to the engine, and so we kind of do redundant grounds so there's more than one path for the current to go.
All right, we are underneath the Corvette, as you can see. This thing is absolutely a work of art. I mean, there is just so much going on down here. Tom, let's start with the brakes. Looks like a Corvette brake system.
It is a Corvette brake system. It's the upgrade from the base Corvette, so it's got vented drilled discs all the way around. It's got the lightweight aluminum calipers on there, and then this has parking brakes on it. So we'll hook up the factory parking brake. It's a setup from Core 3. Those guys do great work, excellent kits. Got a 9-inch forward rear end in it. It's got the Art Morrison shocks and suspension underneath here.
So that's a pretty much plug and play type thing for Art Morrison, right? In other words,
it is.
Stock, the mounts for the stock or for the shocks, I mean, you didn't modify anything. You pretty much, it's a bolt on what they give you is.
Yeah, it's a very well thought out system, engineered nicely, everything fit well. This particular car, we ordered their pre-rut brake lines. We modified a little bit over the axle to get around some things, but the lines going up the side of the frame, that was a part of their kit. They make holes in the frame so that you can pass through. We built the exhaust underneath here. Chris, sourced the center section for the rear end, and then Chris's company built the drive shaft for it. So it's got a nice aluminum shaft in there.
I don't know if you care to sit in the auto cross all weekend.
It looks like you said, the exhaust is custom long headers.
Yep, that's a set of ultimate headers, and then Matt built the exhaust. Matt's one of our guys. And then V-bands in the back, so that's serviceable. You can take it out because there's a lot of structure in the frame you have to work around.
And they just released the schedule for it.
And is that, I'm not that much on suspension, is that considered a 4-link?
That would be, yep.
Okay.
Triangulated 4-link. And Morrison's nice enough, they give you a rear sway bar on there that's adjustable. So Chris is going to drive this car on the track, and it's going to earn its keep underneath here.
All right.
It's not just going to be a trailer queen.
Moving up to the front of the vehicle, again, just Corvette disc brakes, it looks like.
Yeah, big set of brakes up front. It's got the big thick rotors. Chris is going to torture this car. And it's got the Morrison coilovers, which are adjustable. and then upper and lower control arms, you know, and these would not have had this type of suspension back in the day. And Morrison, you know, all the body mounts are in here, frame mounts are in here, everything's fit in here nicely. The headers are specifically spec'd for this chassis from Ultimate Headers.
Yeah, it looks like everything, you didn't have to do a lot of cutting and dicing and everything. Not necessarily a plug and play, but certainly looks like things fit pretty well.
It's well engineered enough. You know, you might make a small adjustment here or there when we're fitting the body of the frame, getting the body shimmed properly. The rest of it really went together pretty nicely.
Rack and pinion steering.
Yep, it's got a power rack, so you know, to drive like a today's car, and ride quality you can adjust in terms of firmness, and adjustable sway bar up front also. So if you're going to go out and drive aggressively, or you want to soften the suspension, you have the option to do that. Really very nicely thought out system. You know,
It looks pretty nice. I mean, from front to rear, it's one of those things where, like you said, it's adjustable. Pretty much your driving method, or however you want it to work, it's going to work fine. So.
Yep, you want ride comfort, you can adjust that. If you want to go out and go road race for the weekend, you know, it has that capability.
Here's one of the things you can kind of take a look and see what Charlie and Tom and his crew guys do out here. I mean, this is unbelievable. You take a look at just the fuel line that comes down through here, how accessible it is for one thing. You can see that they're using rubber grommets on their fuel line going all the way up to the engine. I mean, everything about this car is just, it's not only unique, but the workmanship on it is just unbelievable. It just never stops. Everything you look at is just, it's just professional grade quality on everything. It's just from the banding of the exhaust, everything. I mean, it just works great.
To it, and
So we're going to do the first test fire and see if she runs, huh?
yeah. Get everything talking to each other quick here. Have you ever seen HP tuner stuff?
A little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
All right. See what happens. What do you think of that? So this essentially is everything. We got air fuel ratios, short trim, oil pressure. I mean, you can even go down the road with this where you've got mile per hour, everything that you need.
Right there on
Right there.
Yep. Cool.
So, and then this can get saved. What it's doing right now is a lock. So what I'll do is I'll send this to the tuner and he can tweak little things on it. If it is running a little bit rich, that's what this number down here is. It's pulling a bunch of fuel out of it.
Sure.
So he'll go in and tweak all that so that number is, you know, as low as you can get it.
Yep.
So
Nice. a little bit.
Yeah.
So I don't.
So then too, when it gets tuned, we'll mess with the fan temp stuff.
Yeah.
You know, right now, when you get the startup tunes in them, everything's set to factory. So like the fan probably turns on at like 205. Obviously we'll drop that down so it runs around like 190, 195, something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, so.
Be fun to hear what it's going to sound like at about 6,500 RPM, ain't it?
It'll be noisy.
That's great. Cool.
Get done and you're like, oh, I wish I'd thought of that. You know, like, oh, you mean the column's gonna go there, or the hood latches are gonna go there. I'm like, all right, so good news is we had it mounted, we really liked what we did, but that doesn't work.
Yeah.
All right, there we got it. Fired right up. Man, that was sweet. That thing just, Charlie hit that key and that thing just barked right off to life. So as you can see by the end of the video here that Chris and Charlie and his guys still have a few more things to button up at his shop. Next stop after that is Chris is actually going to take that car back to his garage. He will put the finishing touches on that thing. Tires and wheels have been ordered, so that's the next thing. They will assemble that thing. They're going to fit the hood, they're going to fit the trunk lid, they're going to fit the top, all those things. Once Chris gets that back to his place, Lenny's actually going to come back out, buff and shine that thing back up, and it's ready for the road. That's all going to take place in the next month or two. We will follow the progress on that Corvette, and we will bring you, hopefully, the first ride and drive with Chris in his 61 Corvette. Thanks for watching, stay tuned, and we'll see you next time.